8 days, 1 hour until the massacre at Ffirth Asylum. Amy couldn't help but notice that after John had gone on and on about how tired he was and how he'd had no sleep because he was busy recruiting David the night before, he was still going through Strawn at midnight. He and Nisha finished off the absinthe, but then Nisha went down the hall and came back with another bottle of some kind of liquor or other. It had a pirate on the bottle. John was getting talkative and was suddenly in action hero mode. "We need weapons. That's the first step," he said. "We may have to improvise something. All those assholes gotta pay." Pay for what? He was getting loud, and that made Amy nervous because, apocalypse or not, it was against building policy to have overnight visitors from off campus, and if the RA caught John in the room, she'd make him leave. And then what would he do? Sleep in the truck? But now, he and Amy's roommate were getting drunk and downing pizza and making a party out of it. Everybody deals with crisis differently? I guess. They asked Amy if they could use her laptop, and they both huddled over it, refreshing the news websites and all of the social networking hubs over and over and over again, even though nothing new was coming out of Undisclosed, and Amy was pretty sure nothing new would come out until daytime. If nobody had reporters on the inside and the phone lines were down, then all that was coming out were the stupid rumors. Sitting there and sucking up the rumors wasn't doing anyone any good. It was just following the crisis as a form of entertainment, the crisis that David was stuck right in the middle of. Amy didn't think either of them even noticed when she got up, put on her jacket, and walked out. There was still a lot of people in the common room. The channel got switched to Fox News, and a panel of experts were desperately trying to fill airtime by finding ways to rephrase the nothing that they knew, over and over again. She thought it was fascinating how the coverage on the internet and the coverage on TV were from alternate universes. TV was all terror, terrorist, Al-Qaeda, and the internet was zombies, zombies, zombies. Amy just kept walking toward the elevator and headed down, out of the building. She needed air. The campus was buzzing. The hot dog truck was pulled up in front of the building, and there was a line 3 wide and 10 deep in front of it. Amy walked past because she wanted to wish Spiro the hot dog guy a happy birthday. His was one of the over 200 birthday programmed into the calendar app on her phone. He smiled and told her the hot dogs were free tonight, 1 per customer, not because of his birthday, but because of the other thing. She passed a flyer posted to a utility pole with the huge letter Z on it, which she ignored, but then she passed another one, and another. Then she arrived at the visitors' parking lot and found one under the windshield of David's truck, and all the other cars, and read it. I'll put a picture in the thing. Meeting, Z, powder keg, 2nd Street, every day at noon. Survival, basic weapons training, general preparedness. It's here. Be ready. Zombie nerds. They probably had the flyers already made up for this. There was nobody creepier than the zombie nerds. College guys who not only watched zombie movies and read zombie novels and played zombie video games, but actually formed clubs and collected zombie-killing weapons. Gun shops around there actually stocked zombie targets and special zombie bullets with glow-in-the-dark tips. Not toy bullets, mind you. These guys would go out in the woods and train and shoot and defend to the death their right to stay in childhood until age 35. She climbed inside the truck. She wasn't going anywhere. She had never learned to drive. Her car accident happened not long before she would have been due to take her driver's ed courses in high school. She never got back around to it after she went back to school, and now the thought of it terrified her. She didn't know how anybody did it, hurtling down the highway at 65 miles an hour while a barrage of other cars come flying toward you like huge cannon shells, whipping past in the next lane, just 5 feet from your own squishy body. If at that moment one of you nudges your steering wheel at the wrong time, 2 seconds later your body is a bunch of spaghetti wrapped around bundles of twisted steel. She'd yell at David for eating while he drove, a Coke between his legs and a hamburger in one hand, steering with 2 fingers. At night. It's like nobody in the world gets how fragile life is, how fragile our bodies are. Amy got the crying to stop about 10 minutes later. Her tear ducts were getting sore. She turned the flyer over and found a pen in her purse. She held the flyer to her thigh with the stump of her left wrist and began writing with her right. She was making a list. 1. Call the Centers for Disease Control. John said that's who was in the scene of the house fire, which made sense because this was sort of a disease. If so, at some point they had to establish a hotline for people who'd get in contact with their loved ones inside quarantine. There'd be riots otherwise. They were still Americans. There was still such a thing as the Constitution. All she needed them to do was confirm that David was okay, even if she wasn't allowed to see him or talk to him. 2. Exhaust all means of contacting David. One way or the other, it didn't seem plausible that the government could really shut down all forms of communication. Not in the 21st century. She could have John post a message to him on his blog. She would post on Facebook. She would email him. She would try the cell again. write a paper letter addressed to the undisclosed quarantine operation sent "Attention David Wallen." It was driving her crazy not knowing. Where was he right now? At this moment? Wandering free around town? In a temporary CDC plague tent or something? Crashing at John's old place? She thought for a moment, then jotted down. If David is in CDC custody, get him a care package. His house had burned down. That meant he needed everything. Clothes, heartburn pills, replacement contact lenses in case he lost one, dandruff shampoo, some Oreos, a book. One more idea occurred to her. It should have come to her sooner. She wrote, 4. Contact Marconi, ? Marconi, if you haven't heard of him, was Dr. Albert Marconi. He wrote books and hosted a show on the History Channel about monsters and ghosts and stuff. David and John knew him because their paths had crossed a few times. If anybody knew what to do, he would. Heck, he's probably on his way here. Probably started calling his producer and packing his bags the moment that zombie video hit the news. Then, with resolve, Amy filled in the last item. 5. If none of the above can be done, get into quarantine. Getting out of quarantine was hard, but getting in would be the easiest thing in the world, right? All you had to do was show up and say you were infected. She wouldn't even need a lie. She had spent 12 straight hours with somebody who was at Outbreak Ground Zero. Just tell them that. Instant ticket in. The problem would be figuring out how to find David once she was in there. If the government had him somewhere, they may not allow them to stay together since they're not married. If they didn't have him, finding where he was in town could be a chore. Still, just being inside the city would put her 90% closer. She folded up the paper and put it in her purse. There. Now she had a plan. She felt better. She would get some sleep and get a fresh start with John tomorrow.